Pay close attention to this rock. It has a strange, dark stain pattern on it. These kinds of patterns are often associated with living organisms, microbes, and bacteria. But this rock is not from Earth. It's from Mars. NASA's Perseverance rover recently discovered this rock, and in a press conference held yesterday, they said this may be the strongest evidence yet of alien life on Mars. This could be the clearest indication of life on Mars so far. We've heard similar stories before: biological signatures on exoplanets, or organic materials in the clouds of Venus. Now let's examine this in detail. Earlier this year, I visited NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory to discuss the search for alien life. There, they explained that these are exactly the kinds of patterns they're looking for. If they're right, this would be a major turning point in human history. The answer to the question we've been asking for thousands of years: are we alone in the universe? I hope you're ready. Our story begins in Jezero Crater. NASA chose to send Perseverance here because it appears to have been an environment suitable for life. The crater was once a vast lake. Multiple rivers flowed into it, and all the necessary conditions to sustain life were present. But today, Mars is dry and desolate. That's why Percy is working to find fossils of ancient life. Last year, on June 9th, when it entered an inlet channel, the team noticed a solid rock that quickly became the focus of intense research. When they got closer, what they found was incredible. The rock sample appeared to be covered in small dark spots and large circular shapes. The team immediately gave these features nicknames: leopard spots and poppy seeds. This may look fairly ordinary to you and me, but for NASA geologists, it set off alarm bells. I'm Adam Stelzner. I'm the chief engineer for Perseverance. I'm currently the chief engineer for the Mars Sample Return Project. On Earth, similar markings have been observed, and they're usually associated with microbes, like fossilized evidence that mud was once full of life. If we saw these on Earth, we would say, this is biology. But seeing these images on Mars? Naturally, everyone got extremely excited, and they immediately began investigations. They used all of Perseverance's instruments to study the sample. The significance of what they found was so great that the team decided to drill it and store it for further analysis. One of Perseverance's primary missions is to collect these samples and eventually organize a mission to bring them back to Earth. Keep that in mind. And so the drilling began. They took a core sample and placed it into a metal tube. They named the sample Sapphire Canyon, and it is now one of the most valuable samples ever collected from Mars. The cores we collected with Perseverance appeared to offer potential ancient biological signatures. Right after drilling the sample, Percy even took a selfie. You can see the freshly drilled rock here. At the time, they didn't know that what they were about to discover could change human history forever. Is there life on Mars? A very big question. If life can arise everywhere, that paints a very different picture of the universe. One where life isn't rare and confined to special conditions. But before we go too far and claim we found alien fossils, we need to be cautious, because we've been wrong before. Our quest to find life on Mars is now a story spanning decades. In 1976, NASA's Viking landers finally reached the Red Planet, and it was time to conduct the first experiments to search for life on Mars. Essentially, they sprayed nutrients onto Martian soil and checked whether any life was present to consume them. Suddenly, the soil began releasing gas, as if microbes and bacteria were eating the nutrients. Everyone got excited and started thinking microbes existed on Mars. But scientists eventually realized that reactive chemicals in the soil could easily explain the results. No life was needed, just salts. By the 2000s, when rovers like Spirit and Opportunity were sent to the Martian surface, all the data showed that Mars had once been a very active planet. Like Earth, it had vast oceans and flowing rivers. According to Spirit and Opportunity, Mars was wet 3 billion years ago, around the time life was just beginning on Earth. Curiosity later showed that this wet Mars had conditions suitable for life. Naturally, this convinced scientists that fossilized remains of alien life from that era could be hidden around lake beds and river deltas. That's where Perseverance comes in. Equipped with a robotic arm for sample collection, it's ready to make the biggest discovery ever on Mars. Perseverance has many tools to analyze samples and search for signs of life. First, there's PyXL, which helps determine which elements are present in a sample. Then there's Sherlock, which uses lasers to detect specific minerals and organic molecules. When Percy aimed these instruments at the sample, everyone held their breath. It was exactly what they were hoping to find. The mudstone at the location of those strange spots contained organic molecules, carbon-based compounds. And that wasn't all. The circular structures also appeared to be filled with iron, phosphorus, sulfur, and two very special minerals, vivianite and greigite. On Earth, vivianite and greigite are typically associated with decaying plant and animal matter. This was a crucial clue. Researchers on Earth spent the next year examining the data in depth. They analyzed the sample's composition and developed theories about what could have created these strange spots. Finally, just a few days ago, they announced their conclusions. We sent this to our scientific colleagues to test and scrutinize it, asking, are we interpreting this correctly? Could this be evidence of ancient life on Mars? After a year of review, they came back and said, we couldn't find another explanation. That's why this may be the clearest evidence of life ever detected on Mars. In short, it's truly extraordinary. In a single rock sample, they found the three fundamental ingredients for life: liquid water, organic components, and an energy source. Finding all three in one sample is a first. Think of it like this. You stumble upon a campsite, a fire ring, some ash, leftover food scraps. Even if you don't see anyone, it's strong evidence that someone was there. Of course, they also considered alternative explanations, and what they discovered genuinely surprised me. The two key minerals, vivianite and greigite, suggest that the activity involved a type of process called a redox reaction. We know microbial life can perform these reactions, but theoretically, there are other possible explanations. One possibility is ordinary geology occurring at high temperatures. If you heat mud and keep it hot long enough, you could get similar results. But there's no evidence the rocks were exposed to such high temperatures. In fact, vivianite forms at low temperatures and breaks down if overheated, so high temperatures are likely not the answer. Another alternative involved acidic water reactions. Essentially, if a highly acidic fluid passed through the rock over a long period, it could have produced these minerals. But the problem with this hypothesis is that we'd need more evidence supporting the presence of such acidity. And there isn't any. In fact, they even found olivine in the rock, which is destroyed by acid. That likely rules this out as well. A third hypothesis was that organic components might have undergone the reaction on their own with the help of a catalyst. In chemistry, catalysts speed up reactions. If a catalyst were present, the findings could be explained without life. But even this scenario seemed unlikely at such low temperatures, and scientists agreed there was no strong evidence to support it. So when you consider all these possibilities, the most logical explanation becomes clear: ancient microbial life. The findings perfectly align with what scientists have long suspected could exist on Mars. If microbes once lived in the mud of Jezero Lake and used sulfur and iron as an energy source, they could have left behind these leopard and poppy seed patterns as waste products. Everything seems to support this idea. The mud was once full of life, and these traces were trapped as it turned into rock over time. So if everyone believes life is the most reasonable explanation, why aren't they saying it outright? Why haven't they announced that we've found a biological signature of life on Mars? It feels like we've heard this before. As Carl Sagan famously said, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And honestly, there's no bigger claim than saying you've discovered alien life. That's why we need to go to Mars and bring the samples back ourselves. NASA uses something called the Life Detection Confidence Scale to assess how confident they are that a discovery truly represents alien life. The scale ranges from the lowest level, where a signal potentially associated with life is detected, to the highest level, where the same sample is independently confirmed by multiple observers. This current detection likely sits somewhere in the middle of that scale. NASA hasn't publicly stated exactly where, but to move it to the highest level, we must bring the sample back to Earth. Why bring samples back from Mars? Because all the intelligence and creativity we can send there doesn't match what we have here on Earth. Spacecraft have limited capabilities. If we can analyze the samples in our laboratories, we can determine much more definitively whether what Percy found is truly a life form. The answer lies in bringing Mars samples back. As mentioned earlier, Perseverance has been collecting interesting samples for years, sealing them and storing them for future study. At this point, Percy has done everything it can from the Martian surface. There's nothing more we can do remotely until we retrieve the samples. And that's the hard part. 3 separate missions are required. First, collect the samples. Second, place them on the surface. Then send a rocket to Mars to launch them into orbit, and another spacecraft to retrieve them from orbit and bring them back to Earth. The mission is so complex that NASA struggled for years to initiate it. But now, official steps are being taken toward returning samples from Mars. Perseverance and the Mars 2020 mission represent the first phase of this process. It's essentially the most expensive delivery service in the world. Every 10 years, the National Academies of Sciences conduct a study to advise NASA on priorities. And for the past 2 decades, they've said that returning samples from Mars should be a top priority. But in recent years, uncertainty and budget cuts put the mission at risk of cancellation. Finally, we may be able to discover whether Mars once harbored life. If we are to answer one of humanity's most important questions, this is the time. We must bring the samples back. If everything goes well, we may have them in our hands sometime in the 2030s. If you'd like, I can make a comprehensive video explaining how the Mars sample return process works. Just let me know in the comments. But I'm curious about something. When we finally retrieve the samples and analyze them, and if we truly find alien life, what do you think that will change for humanity? I've thought about this for a long time. Personally, I believe finding life elsewhere would change how all of us live. It would change what it means to be alive and, I think, bring us together. The idea that life might be incredibly rare worries me, because humanity constantly seems on the brink of self-destruction. But if life truly exists wherever it can, that would be wonderful. Then we could look at the universe and see that many places allow life to persist. Maybe many forms of life waiting to be discovered. It reminds me of when people once believed the Earth was flat. Discovering that Earth is round was profound. And when people realized Earth is just another planet, like Mars and Venus, our relationship with living on a planet changed. I think this is just as important. Arthur C. Clarke once said there are 2 possibilities. Either we are alone in the universe or we are not. And both are terrifying. Perhaps we've finally found the answer.